So we got a crystal of a layered sulfide, a piece of lithium, put it in a beaker, and we generated the voltage. And from that moment on, it was full speed ahead. It was the chair of the Nobel Chemistry Committee in Stockholm. He said, "You've got it. Please don't tell anybody about it for 30 minutes and not public yet. Choose something, do something risky, don't do what somebody else is doing, and do it fast."
Welcome to BattChatt, the official podcast of NatBat International. The goal of this podcast is simple. We want you to better understand how advanced battery technology has become one of the key technologies enabling the electrification of the 21st century economy, and through that understanding, better predict where energy technology is headed generally and how it is likely to evolve. Let's begin.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Jill Pestana, and I have with me here today a very special guest. It's Professor Stan Whittingham, who won the Nobel Prize for the invention of the lithium-ion battery. And he is currently a professor at Binghamton University and Chief Science Officer of NatBat International. Welcome, Stan.
Thank you very much.
I am really excited today to dive into your background, your discovery, the Nobel Prize, being knighted, all these amazing things that you've done throughout your life here today. So tell me more. Did you expect when you started out that you would make such a breakthrough discovery?
I don't think anybody ever thinks that way. We were doing a job. We were asked to work on energy projects, but they weren't petroleum or chemical related. It was then called ESSO at that time. And so we worked very hard on alternate technologies. They were the largest manufacturer of solar cells in US. They had a fuel cell program with Alstom in France. And they were interested at one point in making electric vehicles. So we were looking at superconductors. Then we made discovery there that led us into making basically lithium batteries. And we pursued that. Once we made a discovery, we pursued that very fast. It's very interesting in those days working for Exxon. We made the discovery. I was sent to New York City to meet with a committee of the board of directors. I gave what would be called an elevator speech, I think, these days. And within days, they said, "No, let's do it, let's go." And they treated research really like drilling oil wells. Some will work, most won't. And we got to go ahead for build a development team and in the end, a manufacturing team.
Wow. Did you notice or did you realize that when you're asking for this kind of funding or resources to pursue this, that it would be such a big breakthrough?
No, not really. We're just looking for a better battery. And in those days, if you had an electric vehicle, it used lead acid. And shortly after we made this discovery, then you had the petroleum crisis in the US. So then got even more important to have alternative, I think, methods of transportation. People have to remember there were really no computers in those days. There were no electronic toys. So the real market for batteries was electrical vehicles.
What was the moment then when you realized that this could be that breakthrough that really makes a huge impact of the invention of the lithium-ion battery?
So when we were making some new superconductors, I was making the materials that generated a lot of heat. So I said, maybe we can harness that energy. So we got a crystal of a layered sulfide, a piece of lithium, put it in a beaker, and we generated the voltage. And from that moment on, it was full speed ahead. We had to change the material because the superconductor was tantalum disulfide, clearly too heavy. So we moved to titanium disulfide. My colleagues made very large single crystals, and we were using single crystals as the cathode when we started out.
Did that feel really like you had this moment of, wow, what I'm building is actually working? Like, what did that feel like?
Only a little bit, I think. No, it's a lab experiment. We were just, I would say, playing around at the beginning.
Yeah. Exploring, experimenting, seeing where things go.
Yes.
And as time progressed, did this kind of gain a momentum within the industry, or how did that happen?
I've got to say, there was really no industry at that time. So this was within Exxon. There were colleagues at Bell Labs who caught up pretty quickly with us. So the telephone companies wanted backup for the phone system. So they had interest in the same area. So we, in the end, were competing head on with AT&T Bell Labs at that time.
And from there, where did it go?
Well, what we did, we developed the cathode material. We're using pure lithium. We found new electrolytes that would plate out the lithium. So we had a team of organic chemists, materials folks, physicists, chemists, all different, solving the problem. Then our manufacturing group, engineering group, under Bob Hamlin, started making the batteries and showing that we could, in fact, make them. They would cycle, and they had good, I would say, potential to replace lead acid in a number of different applications.
Yeah, so these incremental improvements and tweaking this, adding that, and over time it led toward itself of, oh, this could apply to replace these other technologies potentially.
Yes.
Did you ever get any pushback against these ideas as you went along?
Not really, no. This is exciting times. People have to remember the large corporations back in the 70s had large corporate research labs, and they were looking 5 years, 10 years out. So there's always, what are you doing for us next down the road, not what you did for us that impacted today's stock prices. So they were really looking long-term into the future. So it was exciting times. It was challenging times. And in the end, people started saying, well, what's the real market for this? Because once the oil crisis went away, gas prices went down again. And I think companies like Exxon and Amoco was the other one, big in materials, was how big are the markets? And I think in the end, Exxon decided the market wasn't big enough to justify their management time. So they got out of all these alternative energy activities. And really, in some ways, you could argue that our discovery was maybe 5 or 10 years too early to be commercialized.
Yeah, what year was this was going on?
So we made the first batteries, 72, 73, filed the patents in 75, and we're marketing some of the cells by the late 70s. So there was interest to make small cells for a number of watch applications. One has to remember in those days you were using light-emitting diodes in watches. They took much more power. So companies said we need small rechargeable batteries. So the interest was, let's make small ones, test them to make sure they're safe before we make very large ones for cars.
Yeah, and Sony was the company that first is given credit for commercializing it, right? For their camcorders and consumer electronics. Or what do you think about that? I see you nodding your head a little.
Sony was the first one to be commercially successful. Let's put it with this. They were the first ones to make money. Sony was totally vertically integrated. They wanted their own battery. But no, when we stopped working on it, Exxon sold the technology to 3 companies, one in the US, one in Japan, and one in Germany. I think Sony was not the Japanese company. So it was the US company who was working with Sony at that time, who in the end transferred the technology to Sony.
Wow. And from your perspective, being so close to that research and development of this technology as it's starting to be commercialized, what were you thinking?
It was exciting times, but by the time it started getting commercialized, I was in other parts of Exxon. So if you're a successful scientist in Exxon, you go up the ladder, and I was involved in handling all the catalytic reactions at one point in the corporate labs. Then I went to be division manager of chemical engineering in the engineering operation. So at that point, I was out of the battery business for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Did you stay a little bit connected to it, though, because of your early work?
I followed it. I wouldn't say I was really connected. All these non-petroleum activities in Exxon were handled through a company called Exxon Enterprises, which is based right next to the engineering facility. That engineering facility was in Florham Park, New Jersey. And in the end, Exxon sold it to the New York Jets, and it's now their training ground.
Oh, wow.
So worth more money as a sports area than as an engineering.
Wow. Yeah. So at what point did you come back into batteries?
I moved from Exxon to Schlumberger, and they had interest in batteries for their tools. They put down oil holes to monitor what's down there and to understand it. And they had interest in batteries that operate above 100 degrees centigrade. So I kind of monitored that activity, visited companies who could do it. But it was after I came back to academia, when I came to Binghamton, that I got back into looking at batteries again. And the initial studies we did were, in fact, not on battery, they were back in the superconductor business. So that's when the 123 superconductor was a big hit. So the first funding I got from the National Science Foundation was to look at the reactivity of these oxide superconductors, nothing to do with batteries.
Yeah. What year were you then joining at Binghamton?
1988.
Yeah. Wow. So at that point, we're starting to see some lithium-ion in the world, right? And maybe just around the time it's starting to become commercialized successfully. Did you always take a pulse on what's going on in that as you worked at Binghamton?
A little bit, because the first company who really made large amounts of lithium batteries was Moly Energy in British Columbia. They're using very similar technology to Exxon's. They switched out their titanium disulfide for molybdenum disulfide, which is a naturally occurring mineral there. They still use lithium metal anode. Then they had a few fires and problems, so they had to switch out to that. So I'm not sure Moly Energy actually made any money. It was really Sony was the first company that made money out of lithium-ion batteries. So they're the first ones to be commercially successful. As we say, they solved the third valley of death, how to make money.
Yes, the third valley. That's so true. And so as you're doing work at Binghamton, did you get involved in more battery projects as you went along after superconductors, or what other fields of study did you focus in?
So I was really in solid state chemistry, with a little bit interested in the battery area. Then I took a 2-month leave in Tokyo, Japan, with a Japanese scholarship to work in the University of Tokyo in the physics department. Very exciting time. And my secretary said, "You're aware this DOE proposal is due in 48 hours. And I said, well, maybe we'll do it, maybe we won't. And she pushed me a bit, and in the end, I did it. And you got to remember, in those days, there wasn't really email or anything.
Yeah.
So I wrote it out and faxed it to her late one night. When I woke up the next morning, she had typed it all up. And that day we submitted it to DOE, the BAT program. And that was in 1993. And I've been funded by DOE ever since. So that was a good decision to spend the evening writing that proposal up.
Yeah, best late night, right? To
Right.
get that done. That's amazing. And so that work is really what kicked off your research at Binghamton in batteries then, it sounds like.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing. Within your work at Binghamton, what types of battery chemistries or technologies have you explored?
All the work I've done really has been on lithium-based batteries, whether it's lithium metal or lithium carbon. Or we did a lot of work with lithium tin, which worked very well. But initially, our work was on some of the layered oxides. But then we got a large energy frontier research center through the basic energy sciences part of DOE. And a lot of that effort was, in fact, looking at lithium iron phosphate, why it works as well as it did. And we pursued that for about 7 years. So we understood that material very well. And luckily, that's coming back into dominance now, because the US has lithium, it has iron, it has phosphorus. So we have everything here, so we can make it without, in principle, having to import anything.
Yeah, it's amazing how the technology kind of is cyclical. Like it'll come back and come into fashion, if you want to say. So when it comes to leading up to winning the Nobel Prize, were there any clues that was on the radar for you?
I think there were a lot of, maybe 10 years before we got it, people said, you've almost certainly been nominated for it. And there were, polls run by various organizations that John and my name came up most of the time in there. And the university had been planning it, I think for several years, Binghamton talked to Texas, and then nothing happened. So the year it happened, they hadn't talked to each other. So I think both our presidents were out of town at the time, and they had to scurry back into town for meetings with the media and the like.
Yeah. So take me back to maybe the first moment it became a notion that you could be winning a Nobel Prize. What were you thinking and feeling?
Well, I don't think we even thought much about it. It's one of those things in the sky. Hey, that would be nice. It would help the field. It would certainly help the university. And I said we really given up hope of getting it to some extent. A lot of people say it's too applied. You're not going to ever get it. But you read Nobel's will, it's exactly what I think he wanted. Had to be of the greatest benefit to mankind. And now everybody's using it.
Yeah. And how does that feel that everyone's using it nowadays?
It's great. It's nice and good to have done something useful rather than something that people don't want.
It's definitely a technology that's everywhere, and whether people realize it or not, it's part of their everyday existence. And I'm curious how you feel about, do you think more people should be more aware about how lithium-ion battery technology is in their lives?
Well, we think it's very important. And I taught a class yesterday to, I think, sophomores and juniors here in engineering, explaining to what a lithium battery was and how important it is. But I think our real challenge today is to interact more with the general public. There's a lot of NIMBY about energy storage systems these days. People are afraid of fires, they're afraid of things going wrong. But I don't think they realize there's more fires in internal combustion engine cars than there are with electric vehicles. So we have to be much better at educating the general public, and that includes the politicians.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk to you more about that as our conversation goes on. But going back to those 10 years where maybe you'll get a Nobel Prize, maybe not, what was the turning point, you'd say, where you felt like, oh, this might actually happen?
Oh, I think it went the other way.
Really?
We were thinking that's never going to happen.
Oh,
And we kept saying, no, John's getting older and older, and better happen before. No, he's gone. He was high in the 90s when he got it, and he passed away just a couple of years later.
so when was it that you realized that you were getting a Nobel Prize?
I was in Germany at a large battery conference, and I gave a talk, and I was leaving to go outside, and somebody caught me outside, one of the organizers, and said, someone's been trying to call you for the last 30 minutes. And she said, I'll tell them you're here. And she called somebody up on the phone and handed it to me, and it was the chair of the Nobel Chemistry Committee in Stockholm. And he said, you've got it. Please don't tell anybody about it for 30 minutes and not public yet. And her comment was, you didn't seem happy. I said, I was shocked more than anything else.
Yeah, tell me more. How did that feel for those 30 minutes?
I says, I'm mostly in shock. I went back into the meeting, and then, close to 30 minutes later, there was a bit of a buzzer around the room. The last speaker just finished doing a Q&A, and the chair said, we've got an announcement to make. And they heard it right in the room. I think some of the folks must have been following what was happening in Stockholm. So that was in Germany. So it was about, I would say, 11:30, 12 o'clock in the morning, so very civilized time.
Yeah, and you had been working on this technology for so many years. I could imagine that's really a shock that all of a sudden it's like you're getting the credit that was due. Did that feel like a full circle moment for you?
I think it was interesting when we talked at the meeting. We all agreed it was very important for the field, because the field had now got this recognition. People would take us more seriously. The lithium batteries, they were out there, but are they real? What are they going to be used for? And certainly it helped the field. It certainly helped my university. It was on the front page of the town's paper the next day. The whole page was covered with it. And it has an impact worldwide, because I was already planning to fly back to the US the following morning. We had a news conference from the hotel where I was in Germany. back to the US. They were in one of the large conference meetings here. Then when I went to the airport in Frankfurt, there it was on the front page of the newspaper, and the folks on Lufthansa recognized it. And
Oh, wow. So you started immediately being recognized.
yes, so no, this gets on the front page, particularly if you're in that particular country. And I think I would say 5 or 10 minutes after the public announcement, the mayor of the town was already there, and Reuters was there and AP. So they clearly knew beforehand. Press must know before the public release what's happening.
As you started getting this kind of recognition, did you have to basically clear your schedule and fulfill any kind of responsibilities?
I think the big one was come December, my wife and I and the whole family went to Stockholm. So I think there were 12 of us, and people think it's a one-day thing. It's almost 2 weeks. It's 10 days. So we're involved in presentations, dinners with royalty there, giving talks to very young kids as well as college students. So we're extremely busy and didn't really have time to think much about anything. It was just, this is next, now this, and so on it went.
Yeah, and when was the announcement then for the Nobel Prize?
It was in October.
And then
same
December.
weekend. Yeah, and it turns out it was on a Jewish holiday. So my wife was the last one to know about it because she had switched off her phone and everything else.
What was her reaction when you told her?
A little bit of surprise and shock, but I'd warned her a long time ago, though, that this might happen. It was one of my grandsons on the West Coast who was the first one in the family to notice it. So I don't know whether he was up all night or what was going on. But he got lots of publicity immediately.
Yeah. How has your family reacted in the whole process of finding out and then traveling to Stockholm?
Well, they super enjoyed Stockholm. It was freezing cold. There was snow and everything else, but it was something different, something none of us had ever done before. So lots of attention, lots of paparazzi, and then we and the kids have to all get dressed up in what we call these white monkey suits. And even my youngest grandson was, I think, 7 or 8, and he had to get dressed up in white tie and the rest of it.
Wow. Quite an experience. Was there
Yeah.
anyone you met or anything that struck you about going to Stockholm for that?
No, we met lots of people. I think it's the first time I really met royalty one-on-one. And these things, you do a rehearsal beforehand and everybody's there except the king and queen. But you go through that process and then you go through the real thing.
What was the ceremony like?
Maybe anticlimactic in some ways because it's one of you, then the next one, and the next one, and very formal in that sense. And then after the ceremony itself, then you go to have dinner with 1,000 other people in the city hall there, and that was exciting just to watch how it works out. They were feeding 1,000 people, and they feed them all instantaneously at the same time. So the waiters had their food in their hands, and somebody gave the signal, and they put it down because you're not allowed to eat before the king starts eating.
Certain protocol to follow then while you're there.
Strict protocol, and I think I was sat next to the queen at one point, and then next to the princess, because the following night we have a much smaller event actually inside the palace.
Did you enjoy meeting the royalty there?
Yes, no. They're different sorts of people. No. Some people say they're not real people. They've never been in a real situation. But I think the interesting, the princess I met had left Sweden. She lived in Miami with her children and her husband. And she was trying to leave a normal life. And the story she told me is her daughter came back from school one day and told her, my classmate said, you're a princess. And she said to her mother, what does that mean? So I'm not sure that she really wanted her children to be normal people and not caught up in this all this stuff.
Yes, I'm sure. And when it comes to being there with your fellow inventors of the lithium-ion battery, what was that like?
Oh, that was great. John Goodenough and I worked together for many years until his death on the Battery 500 project. So we met, I would say, almost every quarter at the meeting. So he was very active, and everyone knows he has this well-known laugh, so you can recognize him from a mile away. But he was also, he's very excited about everything. He's a doer more than a talker. So he and I believe in the same thing. We talk too much. We have to get things done and do them. Akira Yoshino, I'd only met once or twice. He doesn't really go to many scientific meetings. But he played a key role in this. And all the Japanese press were following him around everywhere. So it was different than the American press, I think, used the local press as their feed. But the Japanese were, I would say, 40, 50 people there chasing him around everywhere.
Wow. Yeah. And in your conversations with John then and talking about what this means for the industry, what were some of your ideas or thoughts?
I think we were just happy. This had happened. We got now this high profile for really battery research, the battery industry. And now we could really push, I think, to some extent, our state governments and the federal government. Time to take action. All this technology has gone to Asia. We have to bring it back and make it happen in the US.
Yeah. And coming back to Binghamton, what were the next actions you took after this big event?
Well, the next action, they had a big celebration in Binghamton. So in the largest concert hall on campus. So that's the next step. Then it's really, I would say, almost back to business. That it was then Christmas. So not much happened. Then remember, February, March, COVID came. So that really quieted things down. And it was, I didn't travel at all, really. So the last trip I took was first week in March, I think. I was in Canada. They wanted me at a big mining minerals meeting. Then we had a small session in the law office there. And things went well, nice talk. And we heard buzzing, and I left that same day. And that same day, I think they announced they had COVID in the main conference auditorium. So COVID was then in Canada and recognized as such. So within a week or so, the whole place closed down.
Yeah. And that's pretty wild to all of a sudden have the shock of winning the Nobel Prize, being celebrated in Stockholm, coming home and being celebrated, and then the world shuts down.
Right.
What did it feel like as that was happening and then after? And how does that compare to how you were maybe treated before you were awarded the Nobel Prize?
I would say to some extent it quieted things down, but then things got going even faster. I still remember I gave 3 talks in one day, one to a group in England, and then a group here in US at lunchtime, and then in the evening to a group in Tokyo. And I think the big difference, I could do that, but the big difference is still today. You don't go to board meetings, other meetings last 2 or 3 hours, fly there, have 2 or 3 hours and come back. I think everybody's decided short meetings we do by Zoom, and I think that's been a huge change. But I think it's become very important for the larger meetings, particularly for the younger folks. They have to mix with the senior folks, which they couldn't do during COVID. So it's incredibly important to have one-on-one meetings, whether it's a NatBat meeting or one of these other huge battery meetings. They have to be in person now so we can interact. Because how did the young folks learn? How do they make connections if they're stuck in the home all day long?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And so everything went remote, multiple meetings a day for you, talks and everything. Has that changed when you show up to an industry event, how you're treated?
Well, obviously it's changed a lot. All the younger folks want pictures now. So it's, I won't say a nightmare, but that's one of the challenges. But I think I get far more requests to give talks than it's possible for me to give. So I have to be much more selective these days, and they're from all around the world. And certain parts of the world I can't go to or won't go to. But my job, I think, is to help the younger folks, get them going. So I gave a lecture in Lvov, Ukraine, about a month ago remotely. And that's the kind of people I think I have to help, those who are in trouble and those who want a career. So I get involved, I say, in more student-led events, maybe than senior events. And the senior events tend to be in long-distance places. So in 2 weeks, I'll be in Singapore for the International Battery Association meeting. And that's, I suspect, talking to some of their, not just technical peoples, but their policy people in the government as to how can Singapore learn from the US and vice versa. Because if you look at Singapore, it's really a city-state. It's not that dissimilar to New York City. Where do you charge electric vehicles? Where do you get the power from? We don't want big storage facilities in our backyard. It's a very similar interaction. And it's, the fire folks in New York City talk to the fire folks in Singapore. How do we solve the issues? So a lot of what we're doing now is becoming focused on safety, NIMBY. So we're building this prototyping facility in Johnson City, just a few miles from the university. We have to get permissions of one sort or another. And one of the fire chiefs came and said, I don't know what a battery is, and I don't know how I'd fight a fire in your facility. So we need training. So we're going ahead and doing that, and we're going to do it there initially. But then I hope we'll spread it around, and maybe NatBat can help us spread it throughout the country, because we really have to train people. Now, first responders, how do they handle a fire? And obviously, EVs are a big problem now. The fires don't go out. So we have to train and help these people, and then tell everybody batteries are safe, just as safe as gasoline, if not safer. So they stop worrying about it.
Absolutely. There are so many challenges in the industry and so many opportunities. And I can imagine, like you said, you get a lot of asks. What has been informing your approach to where you can make the most impact?
I want to interact to some extent with the politicians. Clearly, that's where the Nobel Prize has really helped. I think politicians listen now. If I ask them, can I talk with you? They say yes, and maybe I wouldn't have got that before. So I think it certainly helps at that level, and it helps at most levels. I give talks in high schools, local high schools, explaining what we're doing. And this is a relatively easy area to explain because everybody has one. So the Swedish equivalent of PBS does a show on each of the Nobel areas. And when they came, they spent 2 days in Binghamton, 2 days in Texas, and a couple of days in Japan. And they said this is the easiest one they've ever done because everybody has a lithium battery. They can explain it to them. And they came to my house and said, we need you to blow leaves on your front lawn using your electric blower now. And there were things like that. So that's how you can get across to people. This is something practical. This is something you do all the time. And unless they let me explain how it works and so on. But I think people are very open.
Yeah, people can connect with the technology on that level because they realize how integral it is with their life. That's really profound that you can help make those connections both for the public and policymakers.
Yes.
Stan, when did you find out that you were going to be knighted?
I was on the King's birthday list about 18 months ago. And I found out before that because I think British Embassy in Washington, D.C. called me up and said, this has been proposed. Will you accept it if you're offered it? I think what they didn't want is to make an offer, then me turn it down. So I always ask first, will you accept it? And then it progressed from there. So this was, I think June, July of 24 when this started to happen. And then it took many months. They announced it on his birthday. And then you have to basically wait until they said, hey, we got time. Can you come to the palace and actually get knighted?
Wow. So when they called you, what was your reaction?
Well, I already knew it was in the wind because you had to be proposed by somebody and they'd hinted, hey, we've proposed you. How come you haven't heard yet, kind of thing. So I think it's probably like any other award. Somebody proposes you, and I don't know whether it's an organization or an individual. But I heard it, then I basically forgot about it. Then suddenly the British Embassy called me up and wanted me to say, yes, you'll take it. And then it's formally announced on the King's birthday.
How did that feel to be knighted?
It was different, interesting. And then I said we had to wait until January this year before we actually flew to London and went to Windsor Castle for the formal process.
Yeah, and growing up in England, was this an honor that you really looked up to?
I think to some extent, yes. I think that this is something you look up to and suddenly all your relatives look up to it. Now, it kind of puts you on a bit of a pedestal. It's recognition. People will listen to you more. They'll take your advice more than if you don't have it. And it's good really good to have scientists getting this and not just politicians, movie actors. So very few scientists get knighted.
Yeah, it's a big honor. And just with that knighting plus the Nobel Prize, how has that transformed how you can make an impact?
Well, I say it's the same thing. People will listen more. Suddenly, no, I like interacting with the younger folks. That's why I came back to academia. And I get on with the younger folks well. So all of this helps. And I think the knighthood has obviously much less impact in the US than it does in, say, Britain. So if I go to a professional meeting in Britain, it will say Sir Stanley on the badge. We don't put it on the badges in this country.
And what was the knighting ceremony like?
In a sense, less formal than I expected. I just went in a suit, no special dress, and you practice kneeling down before the process, and you really go through the knighthoods are just one form of award they give out. So the women get damehoods, they go first. There was one of them, then two of us who got knighted. You go into Windsor Castle, very pomp and circumstance inside the castle, but I said less formal as an individual. Then they announce you kneel, in my case, before the king's sister. She formally knights you. Then she talked for about 5 minutes with me before it was finished. Then we left. So you don't all sit in the same room. We go through it in a process. And they said everybody liked this much better. Otherwise, you were sitting around for an hour.
Yeah, and as you go through the process and the kneeling, how did that feel right as you were being knighted?
Different, strange. I was, I think, too nervous to remember much about it. My son said, you were supposed to bow to her. And she, in the end, bowed to you. So it was a little nerve-wracking, perhaps the best way of putting it.
I could imagine. I mean, it's a different place than a scientific lab for sure, but such an honor and such a privilege to be there.
And it's very nice to see, I said this was in Windsor Castle, very nice to see Windsor Castle with not hundreds of tourists. And you see some rooms you'd probably never normally see as a tourist.
Definitely. Behind the scenes, for sure. Was there anything about that struck you or surprised you?
Not really. I think when we went, I thought, do I have to get all dressed up again? The answer was no. And obviously, the princess was dressed up. All the military was there in full dress, extremely formal from their side of things. But you've all seen this on TV before. And growing up there, you've seen it in person. So it wasn't a surprise, but it's nice to see they're keeping some of these things going. And I think this is certainly something that's important for tourism to Britain. They want to see this pomp and circumstance. They want to see how things happened in the old world. I think particularly these days when things aren't so, should we say, pleasant in this country.
Interesting. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And when you arrived back home, were there any changes with your work when you arrived?
No, it made no difference locally. I think there was maybe a little bit of stuff in the paper, but it's not like getting the Nobel Prize or anything like that.
Yeah. So in the United States, the Nobel Prize was the big transformation in your life.
The Nobel Prize was, I think the Knighthood really wasn't. It made a little bit of difference overseas, but no, the Nobel thing clearly made a big difference. It makes things a little more difficult going to meetings because everybody wants take pictures with you, see you don't have the same kind of freedom you did beforehand. But this happened as soon as I got back, as soon as I heard about the Nobel Prize. The following week I was in Atlanta. There was an Electrochemical Society meeting. And then a week later I was in Tucson at a meeting with young faculty. And so things started happening even at that stage. And no, as I say, it's very good for the field. It gives us much higher profile than we ever had before. Because people say, oh, batteries got a Nobel Prize. It means they're important.
Well, you certainly did make an incredible discovery and breakthrough when it comes to battery technology that has made profound impacts on everyone. So definitely well deserved. And thank you so much for being that advocate for the industry.
Thank you.
So now you're working on a lot of different initiatives. I would love to learn more.
I'm working on several things. One, I've been part of Battery 500 for must be about almost 10 years now. So we're trying to push all lithium batteries to the limits. Can we double the energy density? Can we make them cheaper? And then the other side of that, I'm also involved in several efforts to actually bring manufacturing of batteries back to the US. So after COVID, the federal government decided they would have a number of initiatives. One was build back better regional channels, try to rejuvenate industry. We managed to win one of those in the battery area. So we're building the largest lithium battery prototyping facility in the US. So inventors don't have to go to Asia to make, say, 1,000 full-size cells. They can do it right with us. Then we run the NSF engine, which allowed us to do R&D to actually go to the next stage. So we've been doing lots of effort there to take out the nasty chemicals, the NMPs, the fluorides, get rid of PFAS, so we can leapfrog the Asian technology. So lots of interest there, and hopefully we can keep all this going. But no, I play a key role, I think, in NatBat as the Chief Science Officer. I'm also the research co-chair for New York Best in the state here. And right now we're working on 2 large renewals to get more money into New York State. And then what Chuck Schumer says, we want to have batteries made in America by Americans. Essentially everything made here is either made in Asia or is made by Asian companies in the US. So we really have to generate our own technologies so we can actually say they're homemade. And this is very important for economic development. I think it's very important for national security, because right now the military has to buy some of the batteries from China. That's not acceptable. That has to change. So all of us working together, particularly NatBat with all their companies, can help us build a homegrown industry again. In the old days, the first batteries were made, the ones by A123 for the buses, for grid storage, all made in the US, so it all went overseas. So we just have to reverse that and bring it all back again.
Yeah, there are many challenges right now. And what do you see standing out as far as solving them?
It's really, we got to have the willpower to do things. I keep saying we talk too much and we do too little. So we really have to get down and do it. We've got to have investments. This country cannot build a battery industry without federal investments. And it cannot compete with China unless the government puts either quotas on China or huge tariffs. They're just dumping batteries on us at the moment. Our biggest challenge, I think, is the Asians have been working on manufacturing for maybe 20 plus years. We are just getting going again. It's not just the battery area, it's most areas. And we've got to have the willpower to rebuild manufacturing. So Binghamton, where I am, that was where IBM started out. About 10 years ago, they decided to stop manufacturing and left. Binghamton was the largest shoe manufacturer in the USA for many, many years, provided all the boots for the soldiers, World War I, World War II. That's all gone. They started a flight simulator business before World War II, and that's all gone now. So all the manufacturing expertise, but Binghamton, you look at Rochester with Kodak, Xerox, that's all gone. Our job is to bring all that back again so we don't have to import everything. And so there are jobs for everybody as well.
Yeah, a lot of momentum going on in New York right now, centered around Binghamton and the programs that you're involved with. Are there other hubs across the United States that are doing similar things?
The funding that we got, we're the only battery-related one. There's ones in many other areas, and certainly in the semiconductors, huge effort there. So we got Micron spending, I think, $2 billion just north of me in Syracuse to build a capability there. The activities in Arizona and clearly in the Southeast. But I think we're the only tech hub for manufacturing that was put in place by the Economic Development Agency. So we're hoping to push that. Clearly, we got all the national labs. I would hope they get a bit more applied so that they can help industry more. But there are activities in South Carolina going on now, activities in Dallas, Texas, and California is trying to get something going. But you're going to see this spreading through the US as people say, no, we have to have a homegrown industry. We can't continue importing everything ourselves. And it's not just US, Europe has the same issues.
Do you see that people in the industry have certain blind spots?
I'm not sure there's opportunities for us to grow. We don't know how to make them. We don't have the people who know how to make them. And we don't even have the power engineers to connect things together. It's an area that's been neglected. You can call them blind spots. We're happy to, buy all our iPhones and everything else from Asia, no matter where they're made. And I think people start realizing that we have to do things ourselves. It's the same as the clothing industry. It's gone totally overseas as well. So it's not just the battery industry. It's how do we become more self-supporting? Now, what happens if we get in a big conflict with somebody else? We don't make anything here. It's, I think, a serious challenge for the country.
And that's a big workforce development challenge, right? How do you think we need to change our way of approaching workforce development in order to build up and attract the right talent?
So we have some large initiatives through the EDA and NSF to try to do workforce. The message I keep giving to my folks here, and I get in trouble a little bit now and again, I say we have to educate people, train people to actually make things and fix things, not just to sit behind a computer and do all the education on the computer. So I talk to industry. They want engineers who actually do things, fix things, and they're not really available in this country. So I talked to one company, asked them, where do you get your engineers from? They said, we typically go to farms and look for the kids on the farms because they've had to fix the tractor, fix this and fix that, and they then bring them on board. But we're supporting, for example, the Binghamton Motorsports Club on campus. They have an electric vehicle, they race it, but their team has mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, economics people on there, MBA students on there, all working together as a team. And they're learning how to make things, fix things, and most important, to work together. And when we had their graduation last May, I asked them, how's the job doing? We've all got multiple offers. So companies like people who know how to work together, how to actually do things and make things happen. So we're going to encourage more of that, where we can get more of that in the high schools as well. But in the colleges, we have to do much more, I would say, team building, and particularly after COVID, when a lot of people don't know how to socialize anymore, we have to do things so they can actually work together and make things happen.
Yeah, those are amazing things you highlighted, the hands-on experience, the collaboration and the teamwork. And it's amazing how you're working on these different programs that address those specific challenges. What is it like working with this next gen of battery engineers?
Well, that's one reason I came back to academia. I was in industry, and you all age together. If you come to academia, whether it's the next generation of engineers, scientists, or humanities folks, you get a new generation of 18-year-olds coming in every year. That keeps you young. You interact with them. No, they're a bit, they don't really know what's happening, and you can help educate them and encourage them. But they certainly keep you on your toes, and they ask questions you would never ask yourselves.
Different perspectives, different energies they bring to the table. That's amazing.
Yes.
And how would you define an innovator in today's world?
It's really somebody who thinks outside the box. So where I tell students that they ask me, what should I be doing? I said, don't do the same thing as everybody else. You've got to do something different. You've got to do something that excites you, and then charge ahead and do it. So an innovator is not somebody who necessarily reads everything. You can't read everything in literature anymore. So they've got to have an idea of their own and then charge ahead and do it. And there's obviously going to be hurdles, but they need to get helpers to help them get over those hurdles. So I tell PhD students, have at least 2 projects. If you get stuck on one, then work on the second one. Whilst you're working on the second one, an answer will come to you on the first one. But the main thing is, don't just follow everybody else. You want to be on the front of the train, not jumping onto the back of it.
Yes. Oh, that's such good advice. Looking back at yourself as a younger scientist, what do you wish you would have known, or how do you wish you would have approached your work at that time?
I think I had all the opportunities when I was younger. No. I went to Oxford. I had a great tutor there, Peter Dickens. When I finally, in the end, became a doctorate student, he went on sabbatical. So he left me to do what I wanted to do. And I had total freedom because I had a scholarship from the Gas Council in Britain. I got a scholarship in, I think, May or June. In July, they hit natural gas in the North Sea. And my scholarship was, how do you convert coal gas to natural gas? And they just told me, we're not interested in what you're doing. Do whatever you want and send us a copy of the thesis at the end. So I had freedom to do what I wanted. I think that's very important. Then I went to Stanford, California. When I was there, within, I think, 2 months, my advisor, Dr. Huggins, he went to Washington to run all the materials programs, which then went the Department of Defense. He was gone for 2 years. So again, I kind of ran his lab for that 2 years. I had the freedom to do things for 2 years. I was kind of my own guidance to do things. And that's very important. I tell PhD students, you're not a technician. I'm not going to tell you what to do. If you have a chance of breaking out and doing something new, which I really had at both those places, grab it and run with it. Don't be conservative, because you really have a chance to open up the whole world to yourself.
Wow. Yeah. So very action based, and taking action and finding ways to explore your curiosities early on and having the opportunities to do that it seems like that's what you're saying is really
Yes.
important to have early in your career.
Yes. And you can have those later in your career, but don't know. I know a lot of faculty get tenure, then they'll just retire in their office. But the exciting ones, what next can I do? And those are the people you want to interact with. You see those at scientific engineering meetings, the ones who are still very excited about what they're doing. They've got great ideas, and they get people chasing after them. I want to get on board and do this.
Have you taken a lot of risks throughout your career as a scientist?
I would say, yes, I do things, though. I had the opportunity because I work for Exxon in a corporate lab. It wasn't, this is what we need to do next month or so on. It was we're going to ask you in 5 years, what have you done for us? And we're going to expect you to have done something. So it's a chance of really doing something of great importance, not just incremental things. But those labs are all gone. There's none of those Bell Labs, whether it's DuPont, GE, Exxon. They all had corporate labs. There's none of those anymore. So everything today, I fear, is based on what happens to the stock on Wall Street.
What other advice would you give to early career scientists or those in school who have the opportunity to do research?
I say, choose something, do something risky. Don't do what somebody else is doing, and do it fast. So no, my students all get their PhD in less than 4 years. COVID messed that up a bit. But some students coming in, well, it's going to take 5 or 6 years. And I say, no, it's not. If you join my group, maximum is under 4 years. And if you're very good, you can get out under 3 years. And I certainly have one well-recognized scientist who finished in less than 3 years and is now a leader in this battery field. So it's doable. Don't just drift along. Have a target and chase it.
And for someone who wants to make a big impact in the field, how would you tell them to navigate that?
Very carefully. I don't think you can say you're going to have a big impact. You've got to look for opportunities. I say don't do what everybody else is doing because you're just a follower. Look for where there are gaps in the knowledge. They're like, can you get PFAS out of batteries? Can you get all the fluorine out? We got some idea there. And then as a student, certainly you can chase that. In the industry, it's a bit tougher, but look at those opportunities there. And where else can you use batteries? What other devices can you think of where you could use batteries? Or in some other field, the same thing. I'm going to make something. How can I use it? That's not just step forward from what's going on today, something totally different.
Yeah, and would you say it's also important to engage with the broader community, attend conferences, publish papers? Like, how do you allocate your time as you're making those risks and trying to carve out a new field, perhaps?
I'm not sure you do allocate your time, but things happen and you respond to it. But I keep telling the younger folks, you've got to have some spare time. Remember, you've got a family, particularly one for the young kids. I remember when my wife and I had young children, it seemed to be fly by from when they were born to when they left the house at 18 to go to college. You've got to enjoy those years and not just do work. You've got to balance your life and really have all those things in your life. So, and to take some time out from what you're doing in the lab, I think it's a great thing to do because you may get a solution where you're not pressing for the solution when you're in the lab.
Has that balance really enriched your life?
Yeah, at times it's obviously up and down. Sometimes things go great and other times they don't go so great. You have the good periods and the bad periods, and that's what life is all about.
Yeah. So today, what does it feel like to be Stan Whittingham?
It's nice. I'm getting old. So we're planning vacations now, but look, I've had a great life. Things have gone in my way. And a lot of people, things don't work out for them. So I'm very happy with my life overall. As I said, there are glitches here and there, but you move forward. I think I've had a successful life. There's not many things I would change. The opportunities have come to me. I grab those opportunities and run with them. A lot of people are more conservative. They will just let the opportunities flow by. But I think if you really want to be happy with your life, you've got to do something you really like doing and grab those opportunities as they pass by.
And what brings you the most joy today?
Oh, it's a range of things. I think not the bureaucracy dealing with governments and proposals and things like that. It's still interacting with the family. It's looking at how things are growing or not growing in the garden. I'm looking forward to escaping winter here and going to warmer places. And so we'll be going to Thailand for Christmas and New Year because my daughter-in-law's from Thailand. So we look forward to things like that. And my concern these days is too much bureaucracy everywhere. There's too much nastiness in Washington, which is depressing, I think, for everybody. Certainly, I have students and others who are not US born. And the point I keep making to them, you just got to persevere. And I think somebody just published half the Nobel Prizes given to Americans are to Americans who were born somewhere else. And it's interesting, a lot of the prizes given to people in Britain are to non-citizens. So it's a lot of people who tend to get Nobel Prize, maybe those who are willing to move to opportunity areas and take advantage of things. And I think it's important that the government recognizes we can't do everything ourselves with just Americans. We've got to invite others in, and certainly in the science and technology area. There are no international boundaries. We have to work across them. There are no color boundaries and no really boundaries of any sort now. And I'd like to get rid of lots of disciplinary boundaries in academia in the world. When we were at Exxon, we had physicists, chemists, engineers all working together. We all work well together, and we have to have more of that happening.
Yes, absolutely. More collaboration, more talking, more action where it truly makes an impact, and taking calculated risks to move the needle and transform. And that is truly the legacy that you have brought to the world. And thank you so much for the work and your thoughts and initiatives. And to this day, the work that you're doing with others to really help the battery industry and the world.
Thank you.
This has been an amazing conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share.
You're welcome.